Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Colonel Frank Colley. We warmly welcome the family of Sergeant Eugene Sullivan, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Sergeant Eugene Sullivan. Eugene Sullivan was born in the Sydney suburb of Balmain in 1892, the youngest son of Richard and Mary Sullivan. Little is known of his early days, other than that his father died in New Zealand when he was 16 years old. The family moved to Glebe, and Eugene went on to work as a labourer. Eugene Sullivan enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in August 1915, almost a year after the start of the war. He underwent a period of training in Australia before leaving for active service overseas with reinforcements to the 17th Battalion the following November. Private Sullivan was first sent to Egypt, where the AIF was undergoing a period of expansion and reorganisation following the evacuation from Gallipoli. As part of this process, Sullivan was transferred to the 55th Battalion. Several weeks of training in the desert followed before the 55th Battalion was sent to France to fight on the Western Front in late June 1916. The 55th Battalion first entered the front on the 12th of July 1916. A week later, it was committed to an operation designed to draw German reserves away from the Somme battle to the south by attacking near the village of Fromelles. The attack was a disaster. Private Sullivan's 55th Battalion, initially in reserve, was quickly drawn into the attack and covered a portion of the withdrawal. More than 5,500 Australians became casualties in the 24 hours following the launch of the Fromelles operation. Among those wounded during the attack was Private Eugene Sullivan. Hit by shrapnel in the left foot, he was evacuated to a Canadian military hospital in Outhray before being sent to England. After several months in hospitals in England, he rejoined his battalion on the battlefields of France. Sullivan spent the bitterly cold winter of 1916 and 1917 with his battalion, rotating in and out of the front line. In February 1917, he was promoted to Lance Corporal. The 55th Battalion took part in the advance that followed the German retreat to the Hindenburg Line, but played a peripheral role in the fighting around Bullecourt that followed. In April, Sullivan was promoted to corporal, followed a few months later by promotion to sergeant. In August 1917, Sergeant Sullivan was sent to a training school, missing his battalion's major operation of late 1917 at Polygon Wood by a few days. He undertook further training the following year, again returning to his battalion just after a major operation to capture the French town of Péronne. Despite missing the capture of Péronne, Sergeant Sullivan participated in some of the 55th Battalion's most important operations in 1918. He proved an able soldier during a period of vicious fighting, with a suggestion in mid-September that he should be awarded with a mention in dispatches. In late September 1918, the 55th Battalion took part in large-scale operations to break the Hindenburg Line. At 8:30 on the morning of the 29th of September, the 55th Battalion moved out of the bivouacs to take up position as the Divisional Reserve. They followed the advance for nearly 24 hours before being asked to make an attack themselves in the early hours of the 30th of September. As the battalion left the trenches to attack the enemy at around 6 a.m, Sergeant Eugene Sullivan was hit by machine gun fire and killed. His body was found next to a German machine gun and a dead Australian officer, Lieutenant Jackson, in a manner that made others think that he and Jackson had been killed charging the machine gun. His body was retrieved from the battlefield and buried by his comrades. Today, his remains are buried in the RSL Community Cemetery Extension with no epitaph. He was 25 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant Eugene Sullivan, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget. Lest we forget.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff of the Australian War Memorial, we thank you for visiting today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very good evening.